It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and that means it's time for 1 million cups. I'm really looking forward to this today. So the first thing to do is to check in. So if you have a phone with the ability to recognize QR codes, please check in. If you check in on 3 occasions, you'll get a pen. If you check in on 6 different occasions, you'll get the coveted 1 million cups notebook. Can't have mine. All right, what's our mission? Our mission is to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is a difficult and lonely journey. You don't know what you don't know, and this is the place to come to help figure that out. How do we accomplish that? Well, there's a national and a local mission. We're supported by the Kauffman Foundation, and we work toward the mission of lifting up entrepreneurship through their training programs. They train their organizers, they build a back end, and they try to ensure a consistent format across all instances of Million Cups in the United States. But of course, every local community has its own particular strengths, and we are positioned to take advantage of those. All right, this is the Southwest region and all the Million Cups chapters here. There are almost 200 all across the country. We're the only chapter in New Mexico. If your travels take you to any of these other places on a Wednesday morning, drop in. There are no strangers. There's just friends you haven't met. You'll recognize the format. You'll recognize some of the questions, and you'll be welcome there. What are our key pillars? Our key pillars are presentations, not pitches. Pitches with... You're familiar with pitches, Tom. You've been doing a whole lot of them, right? And in pitches, you've got this flawless company, the perfect team, you know, an IT moat that can't be crossed, all that stuff. And all you need is an infusion of money, and in a year, you'll be ringing the opening bell at the NASDAQ. Well, we know on the inside of a company, it is often quite different from that. And you need a safe place to talk about that and to find out the things you don't know that you don't know. And that's here. So in a presentation at 1 Million Cups, we encourage you to expose your challenges, talk about your vulnerabilities, talk about the things you need or things you don't know how to do, what's stopping you from going forward. That's what you talk about here. If you do that in a pitch, you don't get the money. So this is also about authentic connections. It's not a speed dating contest to see how many business cards you can pass out in a minute. This is about coming here week after week, having conversations along the sides, talking to the presenters, you know, maybe following up with some people you meet here, and sooner or later, you've added people to your team or you're learning something that you didn't know before. We're run for the community, by the community, so all of our organizers are volunteers, which is not to say we don't get anything out of it. I've gotten a lot out of being a Million Cups organizer, which is why I continue to do it. We're radically and intentionally inclusive. All kinds of people are welcome. All kinds of businesses are welcome. So from whiteboard companies to big tentpole companies that show us how it's done, that don't really need anything from us, to, you know, the middle that we shoot for, people that are scrappy and looking to build a company and scale it and bring on new people to their team. That's the ideal presentation at 1 Million Cups. All right, and here's our mission. There's a lot of words here, but basically it's to make this a friendly and welcoming place. You know, you might have differences of opinion with people. Please try to keep it polite and diplomatic. And if you have a strong disagreement with something someone has said, it might be a good opportunity to keep that to yourself. All right, it's easy to apply to present. If you have a for-profit business defined as a business that sells goods or services to people for more than it costs to produce them, and you've sold something to someone who's not your mom, you're welcome to present. We prefer companies that have been in existence 5 years or less, and we also bend the rules from time to time. If you want to present, talk to any of the organizers. We'll assign you a coach. We'll try to nudge you in the direction of a Million Cups presentation that's going to have an ask at the end, and I hope the community will be able to help you with what you need. Oops. And it's time to acknowledge our organizers. I'm Paul Sauter with Equiseek. Lisa Atkins, who's online, is with FatPipe. Eric Wins-Whitmore, City of Santa Fe. Danielle, who's here today. Sonia, who's online but can't hear us. And Keiko and Oscar. So any of you guys want to give a presentation, talk to any of us, and we'll guide you through the process of application and coaching. It's also a pleasure to thank our sponsors, FatPipe, our host for coming on 10 years. And we've had this place at no cost. So 1 Million Cups could not happen without FatPipe. Yeah, give them a round of applause. Dry heat photography, trying to make us look good online and succeeding at that. More than organized. Miriam Ortiz-Pino, organizing your stuff, your thoughts, and providing creamer. Foundation for Sustainable Living, providing free coffee. Noventum Custom Software, making software that doesn't suck and providing donuts. There's Brian right back there. And Minuteman Press, putting ink on paper for all your ink and paper needs. It's a real pleasure to introduce Tom, who's going to talk to us about Flow Aluminum. Now, I did say we're allowed to bend the rules. They haven't sold anything to anybody yet, but they've sold the concept of the company to a lot of people, and Tom's going to take a shot at doing that right now.
Okay, so the origin of the company, this is technology out of University of New Mexico. I've been mentoring with their National Science Foundation I-Corps program since 2019, which is now converted to an accelerator. And Chris Fetro is a PhD student at UNM. I was assigned as the mentor. Stuart Rose is actually another mentor for the program. And so we, immediately when he told me about this battery, I knew it had to be commercialized. So with batteries, there are really two options for returning max energy. The lithium-ion battery is ubiquitous, and then there's our battery. Both batteries have relatively high energy density. Ours is more than double a lithium-ion battery. The lead-acid batteries that are in cars, they are not required to have high energy density. They're just required to get the car going, and then we rely on fossil fuels to drive those cars. Efficiency is not important. So our battery, it's an aluminum CO2 battery. It uses no rare earth minerals, no lithium, cobalt, or nickel. It's lower cost than lithium-ion, not flammable, very high energy density, and uniquely, it also captures carbon. So we actually have more than double the energy density of a lithium-ion battery. We're projected at 695 watt-hours per kilogram, and the drone companies we're working with, this should double the flight time. Okay, so the battery recharges very quickly, and it has a complete depth of discharge, which means when you're using it, you can burn it all the way down and recharge it very efficiently. So on the direct air capture piece, you may have seen that the federal government funded some direct air capture initiatives this year, with $1 billion. So it's a growing industry. It's about a 70% compound annual growth rate. With our grid storage batteries, 3 to 4 megawatts, we're looking at 250 tons of carbon sequestered a year, 12,000 trees, $20,000 revenue in carbon credits per sea container sized battery. And so one of our partners just finished a 200 megawatt install in Texas, and that would be $1 million a year in carbon revenue. So right now we're working on a pouch cell to verify the energy density, and then we'll be building a drone battery, and we will be selling those in 6 months if it all tests out. We'll build a residential storage battery, and then in a year and a half we'll have a prototype for a grid storage battery, 3 megawatt sea container size battery. So the beachhead is the drone market. Will be in revenue in 6 months, and then with the grid scale, we'll be able to use the carbon capture, the direct air capture. In the EV format, we cannot capture carbon. It's a sealed battery, so residential and grid storage will be our opportunities to leverage the direct air capture. So one of the biggest differences between our batteries and lithium-ion is it operates really well at extreme temperatures. So you may have seen that Tesla is an extreme cold, struggle to be recharged, and grid storage, it's even more important. The batteries degrade in performance. Lithium-ion degrades in performance significantly in low temperatures and extreme highs. Our battery operates really well down to -40 Fahrenheit and up over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that combined with it not being flammable, lower cost, and with the direct air capture, we have a broad range of differentiators with lithium-ion. So this is a huge opportunity for New Mexico. Tesla looked into building a gigafactory here, which kind of verifies, signals to us that the labor force is here. As you know, Maxeon's coming in, a lot of the similar manufacturing workforce. So as you can see, the price of EV batteries is up to $26,000. So we're talking even one car company, if we partner with them and they replace their entire line, this is massive revenue potential. We're talking to Honda next week. And Tesla is kind of leading the US with grid storage. Their megapacks start at 2.6 megawatts for 1.24 million and go up to 3.9 megawatts for 1.4 million. We can cut that. We can do 2.6 for under $1 million for our sea container size battery, and it's not flammable. Total addressable market now, 34 billion total addressable market. I just read a market report that by 2040, the total addressable market, EV batteries and grid and residential all combined will be over $1 trillion. We have a really strong advisory team. Mark Hammond is with SoftBank. That's a $200 billion venture capital firm. Chris Brower just came out of Canoe. They are an EV company that's, for example, supplying NASA with EV vehicles. Kevin Basilek here's installed a gigawatt of storage. Just finished a 200 megawatt install in Texas. And Tony Colucci, space industry experience, has started several companies. And then Jay Jung is our fractional CFO, Goldman Sachs and McKinsey. Our team, Dr. Wei, associate professor at UNM, her student, Chris Fetro, Dennis March is our COO. She is our chief scientist, Chris our CTO, Dennis is our COO. He has founded and sold 2 manufacturing firms, and then I'm the CEO. So our competition, iron flow, low power density, and energy storage efficiency, and then there's, it's very sensitive to humidity, and then lithium sulfur is a poor lifetime, lithium air, zinc air, low energy density. We have significant advantages over these chemistries. And so, do I want to take questions first before I go to the ask, or should I do the ask first?
Do the ask.
Okay, so we are looking for an advisor, ideally someone late career or retired, specifically in grid storage, EV as well, but if we could find a retired grid storage engineer that's been assembling batteries for 30 years plus from any one of these companies, we're very interested in speaking with them. We're willing to equity compensate them, so that's really critical for us right now.
All right, thank you. We'll open this up for questions, suggestions, and discussions. So if you have a question, come on up and form a line here. And please say your name and the organization you're with. And the same thing goes for folks online. So I'll kick it off. Maybe this is a tough one, right?
Yeah.
So this is your classically disruptive technology,
Yeah.
right? The entrenched players are all married to lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
So how are you going to crack that?
Yeah. So, with the grid storage, Kevin Basilek, I mentioned, they're doing over $250 million in revenue, so we're going to partner with him. He's going to help design the battery, and he's going to buy the battery. That's our B2B entry point. Hopefully we'll be doing 100 to 200 megawatt installs with him in the next 3 years. EV side is a lot higher barriers to entry. We're meeting with Honda next week. That's the best way to get in, is a strategic partner like Honda develops the battery and puts it in their line.
So all that has to happen is one big player says yes?
Yes.
And then everyone else can see that they're going to eat their lunch. So
Yes.
they have to get in line.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else, please join. Come on up here. I know you got a question.
Probably too many questions. I'm a retiree from Sandia National Laboratories, and some background in manufacturing, so I have a lot of questions. I mean, one of them is like, is your package, do you have a lot of just the technical features like packaging overhead, and I still don't understand how it sequesters CO2, where does the CO2 go? But then the second one is I noticed your leadership is all university people, and whether you have like
two.
Okay. You have some manufacturing people.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then maybe we can help find somebody in the battery background in Sandia if you're interested.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a long ways to go in the packaging and manufacturing space. Dennis Smarch is he's a manufacturing expert. He's our chief operating officer. He has founded 2 manufacturing companies and sold them, and he's now one of the lead manufacturing experts for Berkshire Hathaway. They assign him to different plants to go in and spend a year and optimize the operations. So we are covered. The problem is he's never manufactured batteries. So that's, you know, the ask. You know, and so, yeah, 2 of us are university academic. So we are, you know, specifically looking for industry folks. You know, we would love to work with Sandia, but we really want someone who's been assembling and scaling, you know, selling 1 million batteries a year. So, you know, we've applied for a patent in July of 22. We filed a PCT in July of 2023. So, you know, we're in the patent process.
That's good. Oh, what about the sequestering? Does
right,
CO2
sorry.
run out the bottom or something?
Yeah. So the battery operates in a flow format and a sealed format. In the EV format, it would be sealed. You would put a carbon, you know, something carbon inside it, but then with grid and residential storage, it's an open flow battery. And so when it's discharging, it captures carbon, and this could be ambient or passed to it in a gaseous format. And then it sequesters it inside the battery, and then at end of life, you can bury it to sequester. So.
Marilyn Pruitt with Our Peaceful Path. This truly looks disruptive. And how many of these batteries have you even made as prototypes, and how well do you know they work? And are there negative side effects, like with the lithium, you've got all of this horrible mining that's going on. This is almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
Have you found some of the negatives in there, and how have you addressed them?
Sure. So, yeah, we only have a coin cell right now, which is the size of a watch battery, which is why we're pressing hard. We actually have hired 2 different prototyping shops to get to a pouch cell, which is the size of a cell phone battery, which is where you can really prove out the numbers, the energy density. So, yeah, there's a significant amount of risk right now, but it really does. Aluminum's the 3rd most abundant metal on Earth. It's about $1 a pound. Cobalt's about $15 a pound. Nickel and lithium are between $8 and $11 a pound. If we really optimize this, we can cut the cost of batteries in half. Environmentally, aluminum recycles very efficiently, very cleanly. We could have a captive supply chain within North America and not have to source out of the country. Captures carbon. It's not flammable. There have been over 7 people killed on the East Coast in the last year from e-bike fires, and there's been several. They had to evacuate a neighborhood in California with a battery fire in a utility. So yeah, if we can prove this out, it's truly it disrupts definitely the lithium-ion battery industry. So, yeah.
So it's still in the prototype stage,
Yeah.
but the theory works and everything sounds really good if you can just get the funding to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Miriam Ortiz-Pino, More Than Organized. You may have just answered part of my question, but you talked about EVs and grid, and then you said the first step, though, is drones, and I'm wondering why you picked drones, or if that's secret?
No, it's very simple. It's small.
It's small, so it runs on one of the smaller batteries?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's a fragmented. There are a lot of different drone battery makers, so it's not like there's a big, you know.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Go ahead, Phil.
Hi, it's Phil Wilson, Executive Outcomes, thinking differently and simply about strategy. Got a couple questions for you. So following up from Miriam's question, you're working with drones at the moment, and so I understand that from perspective to see if the battery's suitable for light products. And you're saying you've got a small circular cell battery at the moment. And I heard you earlier say during the presentation that you're going to be talking to Honda next week.
Yeah.
So that's it. So you've gone from doing something that going into a drone or a cell phone to going into a car. How do you know that you have the capacity to be able to do that? And I think if you're talking to Honda, they think you may have the capacity to do that, but how do you transition from being just a very small battery provider, like a, AA, to a huge battery that's going to go in a car or a truck?
Yeah, there's a lot of R&D. The steps are the pouch cell is next after the coin cell, which is the size of a cell phone battery. And then the drone battery is 10 pouch cells in series. And then that will take us out of these two prototyping shops that we're working with, because that's all they do is coin and pouch cells. And that's primarily what all battery R&D, academic and commercial, that's like where they stop. And then there's very specific shops that do the larger cells for EV and grid, and then we'll be working with them, and the cost will increase. And yeah, so grid storage, the C container size, 3 megawatt, that's a year and a half for the prototype, and then there's UL certification, and then when you're going into large 200 megawatt installs, you have to get qualified by a big bank, and there's a lot of D-risk. So yeah, our C containers won't be in the field for 3 years minimum. So
Right, but what conversations are you having with Honda?
yeah. So amazingly, a lot of these cutting-edge R&D battery companies are inking big deals at the pouch cell stage. I don't know if you're familiar with Doug Campbell and Solid Power. He's a UNM grad. He just gave us $45 million. I believe they went SPAC to market IPO with a pouch cell, and they have a partnership with BMW. So it's interesting that the big automakers are racing to get in, even at the very small form factor, and they have the heft to take it through R&D. They have the capital and the engineering resources. So
Right, so they'll be able to probably help finance.
yeah, that would be the big piece of why we're talking to them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, Tom.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I'm Barbara Dawson with Purple Mulch. And, I'm hearing, frankly, you're talking over my head for most things. I had to ask Paul, what's an EV? Because I don't know the initials. Who are you going to with Honda? Who's the gatekeeper for you? And the reason I ask this is because I teach sales.
Yeah.
And if you go in talking to them, they may lose it. But do you have someone who's strong in sales that's going to go in and find out what they need, what it would do for them, without ever pitching your stuff? Who's your gatekeeper?
Yeah, so Chris Brower was in business development at Canoe. They're an EV company. So he's one of our lead business development folks. He'll be talking to them. We're talking to their strategic investment arm. So, it's a pretty separate entity from the actual, production part of the company. Ideally, we're talking to the CTO of Honda. That's who we need to talk to, the ultimate decision maker. So, and we actually got to the deputy CTO of Panasonic, and we're trading emails with him. So that was like a lot easier than I thought it would be. But they're all looking for something. Lithium is, I know the government just put $9 billion into Ford to develop lithium batteries, but lithium will be phased out.
Well, and the reason I ask is because you are saying, it's kind of in the prototype stage. We don't really have it this big, but hopefully you have a really good salesperson that can go in and speak to your customer about what they're looking for, and then you can frame what you can give to them and then what you're expecting back. So you've got someone in that seat.
Yeah, we'd love to get your input and speak with you and get your ideas. Chris Brower was an MBA classmate of mine, and he's Alex Partners. He was a consultant there. He's been on several boards. At Canoe, he was the lead of their go-to-market strategy and interfaced with all the big OEMs and things, and ran their battery recycling program too. So he's our go-to for sales. Yeah.
Reach out if we can do a role play.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Annie, do you want to unmute and go next?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, I have maybe a threefold question, and maybe this is a separate discussion. If it is a little bit lengthy, I don't mind having separate discussion. My question is, number one, where is the prototype? That's question number one. Number two, what are the findings from the prototype and what adjustments you think are needed? And then number three, what is the potential for integration of this particular product with other technologies? And the reason I'm interested in that, in a grid format, in a community grid format, because I'm in the process of doing a community development that has renewable energy, and battery storage is of interest to me. So how is it integratable, and what might that look like?
Yeah, so the coin cell is about a mile east of here in the basement of an engineering building at UNM. The two labs, Polaris is in Oregon, Beaverton, and Battery Innovation Center is in Indiana, southwest of Bloomington. Integration-wise, yeah, we brought a software engineer in to engineer software that will facilitate integrating with networks and monitoring and, addressing different things. So, we are very focused on building a product that integrates with microgrids up to 200 megawatt installs and modular, so you would just add, in the large grid format, you would just add C containers that you need, start with 3 megawatts and then add another 3, and so it would scale out. You could put 40 of them in series and, get to the numbers. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then maybe how can I reach out to you for additional discussion? And
Sure. My email is tom@flowaluminum.com. Our website's flowaluminum.com, and there's contact information there.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Cuomo, Santa Fe Fashion Week. I'm wondering how hydrogen power fits into all this. I've been following plug power for a bit, and this hydrogen player in the industry.
Yeah, hydrogen's really interesting because, it's relatively easy to transport it. We haven't really thought of a lot of ways to integrate hydrogen with what we're doing right now, but you could power electrolyzers. If their industry is going to build out a network for refueling hydrogen cars, you could put one of our C containers on site and drive an electrolyzer, so we haven't really thought a lot about that, but hydrogen would compete, but it's a lot more expensive. Germany had a big initiative to drive trains hydrogen, and a couple months ago, unfortunately, they canceled that, and they're going to batteries, so they're giving up on hydrogen for their trains, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, that's one of my.
yeah.
You talked about loss of power, and I just saw like in San Francisco, I don't know if you saw that, where the city bus rolled backwards because it lost power and crashed into a bunch of cars. Then also Albuquerque, when they were going to do their big, I think those buses were going to come from China, something like that.
Yeah.
So is there a way you could address those issues as well for like the cities and for buses and stuff like that?
Yeah, redundancy, is key there. We can definitely, drive buses, and the big advantage is their cost. Aluminum's $1 a pound and lithium's like $11 a pound. So, at scale, we don't know. I mean, we theoretically could cut the cost of battery in half, and so that would help cities a lot.
And it would store a lot more power, so, because I know they're
Yeah.
dealing with the hours they could be out on the road and stuff like that.
Yeah, so our energy density is really high, so like more energy stored per kilogram. The one thing is like our voltage is relatively low, so volumetrically, which means in terms of space it would take up in a car or bus. We think we can be comparable in the space to a lithium ion, but we have that kind of contrasting really high energy density and low voltage, so we have research to do there, but yeah.
A great presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Hi, Tom. I'm calling from the Pittsburgh area. My question is, have you connected or are you connecting with any alternative energy production organizations, particularly hydro One of the companies I consult for is called Water Rotor, and they use slow-moving water power generation. Anything from a half-mile per hour up to 4 miles per hour is their sweet spot, and they can do up to megawatts. They're stackable and they sit on a riverbed and they're completely safe to the environment. I'm thinking that partnering or making some sort of a business arrangement with a power generation company and packaging your solution for storage, because they're able to produce the energy in huge amounts. Completely environmentally safe, no carbon. To store it is the second question. So you can do wind, you can do solar, but hydro like that could be a good solution. And logistics companies, trucking companies that we're talking to now are actually looking into doing some combination of hydrogen and a battery system that can be stored on a truck or a train or a ship and be able to generate for logistics.
Yeah. Yeah, so my question with hydro would be, that's a 24-hour-a-day kind of base load generator. So I don't know how a battery would fit in there, because you wouldn't want to, you might want to drive our batteries offsite. But GridWorks, Kevin Basilek, who I put in my presentation, they started as a solar installer. So they've done all the large solar installs in New Mexico. So yes, we are working with solar generation. Wind, there's a microgrid they're trying to build around a wind turbine in eastern New Mexico, and we're trying to find grant money to fund that. We're happy to look at hydro, but being that it's 24 hours a day generating, I don't know where our ad would be there. Yeah. Happy to talk about it though. And then logistics-wise, I was in Australia at a conference this summer, and Janus Electric has a really, they drove a semi into the convention, and they have like a big battery that they put in and out with a forklift on the side of the truck. So yes, logistics is a prime target for battery, battery marketing.
Also, just as an aside, in the Pittsburgh area, U.S. Steel just demoed 2 trains that they built, both of them battery operated.
Yeah.
So there's zero carbon, and they're going to stay in Pittsburgh as part of U.S. Steel as a demo. So you may want to look into that as well.
Yeah, if you ever connect there, we'd love to work with the train industry. We do have someone up in Colorado that's going to make an introduction, but if you have intros there, that would be really appreciated.
Thank you.
Tom, obviously Flow is a startup.
Yeah.
So that means you have technical challenges, manufacturing challenges. I don't know if you have commercial challenges yet, or if it's too early for that. And then you have the business challenges, like raising capital to fund all the development and scale up activities. Where are your biggest issues, and how are you addressing them?
Yeah, great question. Right now, our biggest challenge, I'd say, is in putting together larger scale prototypes. We're working with 2 shops. As you know, the battery industry is really full tilt now. The bandwidth of resources is very low. The jobs are very high paying. Almost anyone with battery knowledge is employed right now. So, the progress we're making with those 2 prototyping shops is slower than I want to see it. We've raised $270,000, so we're making good headway. Fundraising-wise, our concept paper was accepted for the SBIR grant program, and we've applied to 3 other grants, and we're going to go after a lot of non-dilutive. But our seed round is going to be $8 million, so that's going to be a challenge too, raising that money. And then commercially-wise, we have a ton of interest. We really want to ink some letters of intent. We have one memorandum of understanding with a Torah Motors company. But one thing that was pointed out is in the grid scale, like the sea container size, those are long sales cycles. When you're putting together a 200 megawatt install, that's years to close deals. So that's probably a big risk of the really long sales cycle for grid storage.
And one more question that's always interesting in New Mexico. And that is, if you get funding, the funding sources are gonna wanna move you out of New Mexico. They're gonna say, you know, move to Boston, move to Denver, move to somewhere else. Most companies end up giving up and saying, okay. Some say, no, they won't. They're gonna stay and they insist. Have you developed a philosophy around that yet?
Yeah, you know, out of the gate, we want to manufacture here. Tesla was going to come in with a huge factory, create 1,000 jobs. We think we can do that. The state has a ton of incentives, LEDA, JTIP, all kinds of, I was just down in the Borderplex region. So, you know, that's a big option down there, as well as the Albuquerque area. So we're hopeful that we can, you know, at least have manufacturing here, but, you know, keep the headquarters here. You know, if the right number comes through in the next 5 years for an acquisition, you know, part of that negotiation would be, can you put a big facility here, manufacturing facility here? So, you know, we're actively speaking with the Economic Development Department about ways to stay here. And I know Chris Fetro is rooted here. He's not going anywhere. So we all are. So.
Hi. Clifton Chadwick with Comunicaciones Cocopelli. And, you know, the thing that strikes me is the biggest neat part is the aluminum instead of the rare earth metals. And I don't know, it doesn't feel to me like you spent enough time on that. When Barbara was asking what Honda wanted, Honda probably wants something not only cheap, but that doesn't involve all the risks of the artisanal mining and things like that. Can you delve a little deeper into that in terms of you know, environmental risks relative one to another?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. You know, lithium is very difficult to recycle, and it is very dirty to mine. And it's actually less rare. They just found a mine in the border of Oregon and Nevada, I think, that they say could supply enough lithium for like 100 years or so. It's massive. But
that's on a tribal property.
Right, so that's a huge problem, and that's going to, at a minimum, delay that, if not cancel it. And then cobalt, horrible labor. There's basically only mines in Africa, and there's like 6-year-old kids in pits, you know, digging that stuff up. So we want to get away from that for sure. And yeah, so, you know, these car companies would love to get away from the lithium and cobalt supply chain. Nickel's expensive and difficult and located in only a few areas as well. So yeah, there's a lot of social issues around the EV battery, the battery industry in general. So yeah, we have all the costs, everything. You know, we have all the advantage using aluminum. So.
I've got one more online. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, it's me again. I want to follow up on what Chris has just asked you, and also what Paul said at the beginning. You got a disruptive technology here, all right? And you went through your presentation, which was very good, and you had a lot of facts and figures, some of which weren't on your presentation. They're in your head, and you've thrown them out there to everybody. I'm a National Science Foundation trained mentor. And so, you know, you're in a startup phase, and the two things you've got to do now is, number one, clearly identify and segregate out what are your value propositions. What is it you're giving to this new disruption that you want to launch into the marketplaces, all right? And then secondly, from there, you have to determine who your markets are going to be.
Yeah.
And so I just want to caution you and get you to take a step back, because you've got a lot of good, valuable information, stats about where you are, how you got to where you are, what you can possibly do, and you actually got trials going. And so I would urge you to take a step back and sit down with your team and actually pull those value propositions out. And if you want help and guidance on doing that, I'm happy to be the arbitrator to take you through that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we'd appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I kind of wish it wasn't the case, but the cost is going to be the biggest, you know, value prop to industry, and we got that nailed. And, you know, then you know, I wish the direct air capture was a big selling piece. Almost no one we've talked to, especially the VCs, care about the direct air capture, unfortunately. So,
But other people will, all right? And,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and as time goes forward, then people are going to get more interested in your carbon capture. And, you know, even Biden saying companies have to say how much carbon they're recapturing, all this going forward. So it's going to be there. But I think you got a lot of good information, and it's easily lost because it got lost in your presentation because you go from one slide to the other. So I think we should slow down and say, okay, what is it we've got, and which of these value propositions, when we're talking to people, do we put out front to get the best comeback from those talks?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we'd be very interested in working with you. So.
Okay. All right, it is my privilege to ask you New Mexico's official state question, red or green?
Green.
There it is, folks, it's green. And what can this community do for you?
Yeah, so, you know, finding that advisor that's been assembling batteries, you know, to produce at scale, we need that. We also need, you know, entry-level process engineers, you know, to assist with scaling the technology.
Super, so hey, you kids working on your PhDs there in power engineering, you know, there's a job opportunity for you. So thanks very much. Let's have a hand for Tom. All right. You know, I don't know how exactly it's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to the day 5 or 10 years from now when we'll be telling war stories about remember Albuquerque way back when. And, you know, you never know whether one of the companies that's been presenting here is going to be the one to put us on the map, because a lot of people still don't even know we're a state. But I think Tom's got a reasonable shot of Flow Aluminum putting us on the map. Let's have another hand for Tom. And remember, when you were a little kid and you were disruptive, you were given a timeout. But when you're an adult and you're disruptive, they might give you money. So just keep that in mind. Things are different. All right, see you next week. Lift up entrepreneurship in New Mexico.